They called me Ibn al-qadi, son of the judge. It was a title that opened doors, commanded respect, and promised a future. Then I asked why we persecute Christians. One question, 20 words, and suddenly I was no longer the judge's son. I was a body being thrown into a cistern, drowning, dying, descending into darkness so complete I thought it was hell, until a light appeared, and a voice asked me a question in return. My name is Rashid ibn Khalid, and I need you to understand something before I continue. I was not a rebel. I was not a Christian sympathizer. I was not secretly reading forbidden books or attending underground churches. I was a loyal son of Islam, born into one of Marrakech's most respected families, raised in the shadow of my father's black judicial robes. My father, Qadi Khalid ibn Hassan, was a judge in the Islamic court system. Not just any judge, but one of the most feared men in Morocco's religious judiciary. For 30 years, he upheld Sharia law with an iron hand. When Christians were arrested for evangelism, for possessing Bibles, for converting Muslims, they appeared before my father, and my father showed no mercy. I grew up watching this, sitting in the back of his courtroom after school, doing homework while he sentenced people to prison, to lashes, sometimes worse. It was normal to me. This was justice. This was faith. This was the natural order of things. Our family lived in the old Medina of Marrakech, in a traditional riad near the Koutabia mosque, stone walls, carved cedar doors, fountains in the courtyard that had flowed for 300 years. Generations of my family had lived there, generations of judges, scholars, men of law and faith. Every morning, my father would put on his robes and walk to the courthouse. Every evening, he would return home and we would eat together in silence. He was not a cruel man in his personal life. He loved my mother. He provided for us well. But when it came to matters of faith, of law, of protecting Islam from what he called corruption, he was absolute. I studied law at Muhammad V University in Rabat, top of my class, memorized the Quran, knew the Hadith, prayed 5 times a day without fail, returned to Marrakech at 26 to work as a clerk in the very courts where my father presided. Everyone knew I was being groomed to follow in his footsteps. Ibn al-qadi, they called me, son of the judge. The title carried weight in our community. It opened doors, it commanded instant respect. It was my identity, my future, my inheritance. But something was wrong inside me. It started small, a discomfort I couldn't name. I would see the Christian defendants brought before the court, men, women, sometimes entire families, and I would notice something that didn't fit the narrative we were taught. They weren't angry, they weren't defiant or hateful, they were peaceful. Even facing imprisonment, even facing death, they had this strange calm in their eyes, like they knew something we didn't, like they possessed a secret that made earthly suffering irrelevant. I remember one family in particular. This was 2 years before the night I nearly died. A father named Yusuf, his wife Miriam, their 3 children, the youngest barely 7 years old. They had been running a small church in their home in Medina, just a few streets from where we lived. Neighbors reported them. Religious police raided their home, found Bibles, Christian literature, evidence of regular gatherings. The charge was promoting Christianity and attempting to convert Muslims. In Morocco, this is illegal, heavily punished. My father sentenced the parents to 15 years in prison each. The children would go to state custody to be re-educated in proper Islamic teaching. I was in the courtroom that day, taking notes. I watched Yusuf's face as the sentence was read. He didn't rage. He didn't curse my father. He simply bowed his head and whispered something. A prayer, I assumed. But his wife, Miriam, as the guards began to lead them away, she turned back to my father. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was steady, clear, carrying across the silent courtroom. "May God forgive you," she said, "as Jesus forgave those who crucified him." Not a curse, not a threat, a prayer for my father, for the man who had just destroyed her family. The guards pulled her away. The courtroom emptied. My father closed his files and left without a word. But I sat there for a long time, those words echoing in my mind. May God forgive you as Jesus forgave those who crucified him. What kind of faith produces that? What kind of conviction makes a mother pray for the judge who just took her children away? What do they know that we don't? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Miriam's face, hearing her words. In our tradition, we learn that Isa, Jesus, was a great prophet. Righteous, born of a virgin, performed miracles. We respect him, but we don't understand why Christians love him so much that they would die rather than deny him. The question haunted me for months. I started researching, carefully, privately, using internet cafes far from Medina where no one knew me. I read about early Christian martyrs, about believers throughout history who chose death over denial, about modern persecution in places like Iran, Pakistan, Nigeria. The testimonies were consistent. These people weren't brainwashed. They weren't ignorant. Many were educated, intelligent, thoughtful. Yet they all claimed the same thing, that they had encountered Jesus personally, not as a historical figure, not as a prophet, but as a living presence who had transformed them from the inside out. I couldn't understand it. We were taught they were deceived, led astray by corrupted scriptures, worshiping a man instead of God, but their testimonies didn't sound like the words of deceived people. They sounded awake, alive, certain of something beyond what I could grasp. The questions multiplied. If Jesus was just a prophet, why did his followers act so differently than followers of other prophets? Why were they willing to lose everything, family, homeland, wealth, even life itself, just to follow him? What did they experience that we didn't? I wanted to ask someone, but who could I ask? My father? Impossible. The imams at the mosque? They would report me for even questioning. My friends? They would think I was going mad, or worse, becoming an apostate. So I kept the questions buried inside, like hot coals in my chest, burning quietly, never extinguished. Then came the night of November 14th, 2023, the night that changed everything. My father was hosting a gathering at our riad. This was common. He would invite fellow judges, prominent imams, legal scholars, influential men from the community. They would discuss cases, debate legal matters, coordinate on sensitive issues. I was expected to attend, to serve tea, to listen and learn, to play the dutiful son being initiated into the world of religious authority. There were about 15 men that night, seated in our main salon on leather cushions, surrounded by carved wooden screens and brass lanterns. The air was thick with the scent of mint tea and tobacco from the shisha pipes. I moved quietly among them, pouring tea, offering dates and almond pastries. The conversation was initially mundane: politics, economics, complaints about the government's tolerance of Western influence. Then one of the judges, Qadi Mansour from Casablanca, began describing a recent case. His voice carried pride, satisfaction. He had just sentenced a pastor to death for apostasy. The man had been a Muslim who converted to Christianity and began preaching openly. "We made an example of him," Qadi Mansour said, smiling. "His execution is scheduled for next month. It will send a clear message." The other men murmured approval. "Congratulations." One imam called it a great service to Islam. My father nodded slowly. "We must be vigilant," he said. "These Christians are like a disease. If we don't cut them out completely, they spread." Another judge laughed. "They're so stupid. They could just pretend to renounce their faith, practice in secret, but no. They insist on being public, on evangelizing. They bring their punishment on themselves." "Exactly," said Sheikh Hamza, my father's closest friend for over 20 years. "They love death more than we love life. Let them have what they love." Laughter rippled through the room. These were educated men, learned men, men who prayed and fasted and were respected in the community. But in that moment, speaking of human beings, of mothers and fathers and children, with such casual contempt, such callous disregard, something inside me broke. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was months of suppressed questions finally erupting. Maybe it was the memory of Miriam's tear-stained face, her prayer for my father. Maybe it was God himself, stirring my conscience, forcing me to confront what I had been avoiding. But I spoke. The tea tray was still in my hands. My voice came out quieter than I intended, but in the sudden silence, it carried clearly. Why do we condemn people for loving Jesus? Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward me. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. My father's face went pale, then flushed red. "Rashid," he said, his voice low, warning. But I couldn't stop. The words kept coming, like water breaking through a dam. If we believe Isa is a prophet, if we believe he was righteous, born of a virgin, performed miracles, will return at the end of days, if we honor him as the Quran teaches, then why do we punish people for following his teachings? For loving him? For believing he can save them? My hands were shaking. The tea glasses rattled on the tray. "What are we afraid of?" I asked. "If our faith is true, if Islam is the final revelation, then why does Christianity threaten us so much? Why do we need laws and prisons and executions to keep people from choosing Christ? Doesn't that imply that maybe we're afraid they might be right?" The silence that followed was not the silence of contemplation. It was not the silence of men considering a theological question. It was the silence of rage barely contained. Sheikh Hamza stood first. His face was no longer friendly, no longer the warm uncle figure who had bounced me on his knee as a child. His eyes were cold, hard, filled with something that made my stomach turn. "You will come with us," he said quietly. Now, 3 other men stood with him. Not my father. My father remained seated, his head bowed, his hands gripping his knees. He wouldn't look at me. "Father," I said. He finally raised his eyes. And what I saw there shattered me. Not anger, not disappointment, resignation, acceptance. As if he had always known this moment would come and had already made his choice. "Go with them, Rashid," he said softly. "Accept your correction." Correction. That's what he called it. As if they were going to sit me down for a stern lecture about proper theology. But I saw their faces. I saw Sheikh Hamza's clenched jaw, the way Qadi Mansour cracked his knuckles, the cold calculation in the Imam's eyes. These were not men planning to correct me with words. "Come," Sheikh Hamza said again, gripping my arm. "To the courtyard. We will discuss this privately." I wanted to resist, to pull away, to run. But where would I go? This was my home. These were men I had known my entire life. Men my family trusted, respected, honored, and I was just the son, the clerk, the boy who had forgotten his place. They led me out of the salon, through the narrow corridor, into the central courtyard of our riad. The fountain bubbled softly. Stars glittered in the square of sky visible above the walls. It was a beautiful night. The courtyard was empty, dark. The only light came from the salon windows and the pale glow of the moon. Sheikh Hamza released my arm and stepped back. I turned to face them. 4 men. Older, stronger, certain in their righteousness. "You have insulted Islam," Sheikh Hamza said. His voice was steady, formal, as if pronouncing sentence in a courtroom. "You have questioned the wisdom of Sharia. You have defended the enemies of Allah. You have planted doubt and fitna in a gathering of the faithful." "I only asked a question," I said. My voice cracked. "I didn't mean to." "Your intent doesn't matter," he interrupted. "Your words have revealed what is in your heart. Doubt, sympathy for Christians, perhaps even the seed of apostasy." "No," I said quickly. "I'm not an apostate. I'm just trying to understand." "Understanding is not your place," Qadi Mansour said. "Your place is obedience, submission. You are the son of a great judge. Yet you disgrace him with your foolish questions. The Imam stepped forward. We will teach you what your father should have taught you years ago. Fear, discipline, the cost of stepping out of line. That's when I realized they were going to hurt me. Badly. I backed toward the fountain. Please. I'll apologize. I'll never question it again. The first blow came from behind. I didn't see who struck me. A fist to my kidney that sent lightning through my spine and dropped me to my knees. I gasped, couldn't breathe, my vision sparking with pain. Then another blow, to my ribs, a kick that I heard crack something inside me. I tried to curl up, to protect myself, but hands grabbed me, hauled me upright. Sheikh Hamza's face was inches from mine, close enough that I could smell the mint tea on his breath. Your father is too weak to do what is necessary, he hissed. But we are not. Another punch. My mouth filled with blood. A tooth came loose. I spit it onto the courtyard stones, watched it gleam white in the moonlight. They beat me methodically, not in rage, but with cold precision. Fists to my stomach, my chest, my face. Kicks to my legs when I fell. They wanted me to hurt, to remember this, to carry scars that would remind me every day of what happened when you questioned authority. I don't know how long it lasted. Time became meaningless. There was only pain, endless and consuming, and the terrible realization that these men, these respected religious leaders, were going to kill me. Then Sheikh Hamza spoke words that made my blood freeze. The old cistern, he said, beneath the mosque. No one uses it anymore. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. They weren't just going to beat me and leave me as a warning. They were going to make me disappear. No, I tried to say, but my split lips barely formed the word. Blood bubbled from my mouth. They dragged me out of our family courtyard, through a side gate I'd forgotten existed, into the narrow alley that ran behind our riad. My legs wouldn't support me. They hauled me like a sack of grain, my feet scraping against ancient cobblestones. The mosque was only 2 minutes away. At this hour, well past midnight, the streets of Medina were deserted. Even if someone saw us, they would look away. These were powerful men. You don't question powerful men in Marrakech. You survive by minding your business. They took me to the back entrance of the mosque, a small wooden door that led to the storage rooms and maintenance areas beneath the main prayer hall. Sheikh Hamza had a key. He was on the mosque board, after all, a generous donor, a pillar of the community. The door creaked open. Darkness yawned below. They dragged me down stone steps, worn smooth by centuries of feet. The air grew colder, damp, smelling of earth and old water. I could hear dripping somewhere in the darkness. Then I saw it, an ancient cistern, built centuries ago to store water for the mosque's ritual washing facilities. It was no longer in use. Modern plumbing had made it obsolete. The opening was maybe a meter wide, covered by a heavy stone lid that had been pushed partially aside. I could see water gleaming far below, black and still. Please, I begged. The word came out garbled through broken teeth and swollen lips. Please don't do this. Sheikh Hamza looked at me with something almost like pity. You did this to yourself, Rashid. You asked a question you should never have asked. Now you will learn the answer in the next life. They lifted me. I struggled, but I had no strength left. My ribs were broken. My face was a mass of pulp. Every breath was agony. They held me over the cistern opening. I looked down into absolute darkness, into water that had sat stagnant for who knows how long, into a tomb that would hold my body until it rotted away to nothing. May Allah forgive you, Sheikh Hamza said, and they let go. I fell. The drop seemed to last forever and no time at all. Then I hit the water with a shock that drove what little air remained from my lungs. The cold was indescribable. Not just cold, but ancient, dead. The cold of things long forgotten beneath the earth. I went under immediately. My broken body had no strength to swim, to fight, to resist. The water closed over my head like a black fist. Above me, I heard the grinding scrape of stone on stone as they pushed the cover back into place. The last sliver of light disappeared. Absolute darkness. Absolute silence except for the gentle lapping of disturbed water. I was going to die here. Alone. In the dark. Beneath the very mosque where I had prayed since childhood. And no one would ever know what happened to me. If this testimony has stirred something in your heart, if you've ever questioned what you were taught to believe without question, don't turn away now. Subscribe to this channel, because what happened next in that cistern will challenge everything you think you know about life, death, and what waits beyond. The journey is just beginning, and you need to hear how it ends. Drowning is not like the movies. There's no dramatic splashing, no prolonged struggle, no opportunity for a heroic rescue at the last moment. Drowning is silent, intimate, absolute. The cold water of that ancient cistern had shocked my system so completely that I inhaled involuntarily when I went under. Water rushed into my lungs, heavy and suffocating. My chest spasmed, trying to cough it out, but there was only more water. Panic should have taken over. The body's survival instinct should have kicked in, driving me to fight, to swim, to somehow reach the surface. But my broken ribs, my battered body, the blood loss from the beating, I had nothing left to fight with. I sank. The darkness was so complete that I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or closed. There was no difference. No light penetrated to these depths. I was suspended in void, neither rising nor falling anymore, just slowly asphyxiating in black water that tasted of minerals and time. My lungs were on fire. Every cell in my body was screaming for oxygen that wouldn't come. The pain was overwhelming, all-consuming, worse than the beating, worse than anything I had ever experienced. And then, something strange began to happen. The pain started to fade. Not because it was actually diminishing, but because I was separating from it. Like I was stepping back from my body, becoming an observer rather than a participant in my own death. I could still feel the water, the cold, the pressure in my chest, but it was distant now, happening to someone else. Memories began flooding through my mind, vivid and rapid fire. Images from my childhood, my mother singing as she prepared couscous in our kitchen, my father teaching me to recite the Quran, summer trips to the Atlas Mountains, the taste of my grandmother's honeyed pastries, my first day at university, the pride in my parents' eyes. And threading through all of it, the faces of the Christians I had seen condemned in my father's courtroom, Yusuf and Miriam and their 3 children, an elderly man who had distributed Bibles, a young woman who had converted and refused to recant, a teacher who had been caught holding secret Bible studies. Their faces, their calm, their mysterious peace in the face of suffering. What did they know? What had they found that made them willing to lose everything? I thought about the question I had asked just hours ago, the question that had led me to this watery grave. Why do we condemn people for loving Jesus? And now, dying in the darkness, I realized I might be about to meet him. If the Christians were right, if Jesus was more than just a prophet, if he truly was alive and able to save, then in a few moments, I would know. The thought should have terrified me. I had lived my entire life as a Muslim. I had prayed to Allah, fasted during Ramadan, given alms, honored my parents, followed the law. If Islam was true, I was about to face judgment for my sins. If Christianity was true, I didn't know what awaited me. My consciousness was fading. The edges of my awareness were dissolving like sugar in water. I could feel death approaching, not as a sudden ending, but as a gradual dimming, like a lamp running out of oil. This is it, I thought. This is how it ends. 28 years old, murdered for asking a question, my body hidden in a cistern where no one will ever find me. My mother will think I ran away. My father will live with the guilt of his silence. Sheikh Hamza and the others will return to their lives as respected religious leaders, and I will simply disappear. The last of the air escaped my lungs in a stream of bubbles that I couldn't see but could feel rising past my face. My body gave one final, weak convulsion, then stillness. I was dying. No, I was dead. The darkness that had surrounded me was now inside me, or I was inside it. The distinction no longer made sense. There was no more water, no more cold, no more cistern. There was only a void, infinite, endless, a darkness so profound that it seemed to have weight and substance and presence. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. I was simply there, aware, conscious, but no longer connected to my body, to pain, to the physical world. Is this death? I wondered. Is this what comes after? The void seemed to pulse around me, or maybe I was pulsing within it. Time had no meaning here. I could have been in this state for seconds or centuries. There was no way to measure, no way to know. Then I heard something. Breathing. Not my own. I wasn't breathing anymore, but somewhere in the darkness, something was breathing. Slow, steady, deliberate. The sound of lungs filling and emptying with the rhythm of eternity. Fear finally touched me then, because I realized I was not alone in this void. There was a presence here. Something, or someone, existed in this darkness with me, and it knew I was there. The breathing grew closer, though there was no sense of direction or distance in this place. Closer isn't the right word. More present, more focused, as if the attention of something vast and terrible was turning toward me. I tried to speak, to ask who was there, but I had no voice, no mouth, no body to produce sound. Then it spoke to me, not with sound, not with words formed by lips and tongue, but with meaning that bypassed language entirely and imprinted itself directly onto my consciousness. Rashid, my name, spoken with such authority, such power, that the void itself seemed to tremble. Why do you ask about me in secret, but deny me in public? The question pierced me. Not an accusation, but an inquiry that demanded an answer I didn't know how to give. Who are you? I tried to ask. You know who I am. You have always known. You felt me in the peace of those you watched condemned. You heard me in the prayers of those your father sentenced. You sensed me in the forgiveness spoken by a mother as her children were taken from her. Jesus. The name formed in my consciousness before I could stop it. This was Jesus. The presence in the darkness, the one speaking to me now, was the very person I had questioned about just hours before. But how could that be? We were taught that Isa was a prophet, yes, honored and respected, but still just a man who lived and died and was taken up to heaven. We were taught he couldn't save anyone, couldn't hear prayers, couldn't appear to people, yet here he was, or here I was before him, in a place beyond death, beyond the physical world, where theological arguments and cultural traditions meant nothing compared to raw reality. Why do you ask why people are condemned for loving me? The voice continued. You condemned them yourself. With your silence, with your compliance, with your acceptance of their suffering as normal and just. Guilt crashed over me like a physical force. He was right. I had never personally sentenced anyone, but I had watched it happen. I had worked in the system that made it happen. I had benefited from the authority and respect that came from being the son of a judge who destroyed families for following Christ. I was complicit, as guilty as my father, as guilty as Sheikh Hamza and the others. I'm sorry, I tried to say, though I had no voice to speak it with. Sorry for what? For asking questions? Or for taking so long to ask them? The void around me began to change. It was still dark, but now shapes were emerging from the darkness. Shadows, figures, people. I recognized them immediately. The Christians. All of them. Every person I had seen condemned in my father's courtroom over the years. Yusuf and Miriam and their children, the elderly Bible distributor, the converted teacher, the young woman who refused to recant, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all standing in the darkness, looking at me with eyes that should have been filled with accusation and anger. But they weren't angry, they were sad, grief-stricken, as if my presence here, my death, my lost potential, it broke their hearts. Miriam stepped forward, the same woman whose prayer for my father had haunted me for 2 years. She looked at me with such profound sorrow that I wanted to dissolve into nothingness. We prayed for you, she said, Her voice was clear, real, more substantial than anything in the physical world had ever been. We prayed that you would see the truth before it was too late. We prayed that you would find the courage to ask the questions your conscience whispered. We prayed you would encounter Jesus as we did. Tears should have been streaming down my face, but I had no face here, no body, just consciousness suspended in the void. Yet I felt something like weeping, a grief so profound it had no physical expression. We forgave you, Yusuf added, his hand on his wife's shoulder. All of us. We held no bitterness toward you or your father. We understood you were blind, trapped in a system of fear and control. We wanted you to be free. Free. The word resonated through the void like a bell. I had never been free. I had lived my entire life in a cage of expectations, traditions, laws, and fears. The cage had been comfortable, even luxurious, but it was still a cage. And these people, these condemned Christians who had lost everything, they had been free. Even in prison, even facing death, they possessed a freedom I had never known. They are free because they know me, the voice said. Jesus. His presence was growing stronger, more defined in the darkness. They are free because I broke their chains. Not the chains of iron and law, but the chains of sin and death and separation from God. But the Quran says, I began. The Quran speaks of me with honor because I am worthy of honor, but it does not contain the fullness of who I am or what I came to do. I am not merely a prophet, Rashid. I am the Word of God made flesh. I am the Son of the Father. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The words should have felt like blasphemy. I had been taught my entire life that such claims were shirk, the unforgivable sin of associating partners with Allah. But here, in this place beyond theology and tradition, the words didn't feel like blasphemy. They felt like the truth, pure, undeniable, absolute. Your father knows this, Jesus said. What? Your father? Qadi Khalid ibn Hassan. He knows the truth. He has known for years, but he has been too afraid to confess it, too trapped by his reputation and his role. He sentences my followers to protect himself from having to make the same choice they made. The revelation shattered me. My father? The stern, unyielding judge who had condemned hundreds of Christians without apparent remorse? He reads the Injil in secret, Jesus continued. He weeps over what he has done. He prays to me in the darkness of night, begging for forgiveness. But in the light of day, he returns to the courtroom and condemns my people to preserve the facade of his faith. I thought of my father's face when I asked my question. The way he had paled, the resignation in his eyes. Go with them, Rashid. Accept your correction. He had known what they would do to me, and he had let it happen anyway, because he was a coward, because he valued his position more than his son's life, because he was too afraid to make the same stand the Christians he condemned had made. Rage surged through me. How dare he? How dare he live in this hypocrisy while others died for being honest about their faith? Do not judge him, Jesus said, and his voice carried both gentleness and authority. He will face his own reckoning. Your concern now is not your father's choice, it is your own. My choice? You are standing at a threshold, Rashid. Behind you is death, ahead of you is life, but not the life you knew. If you choose to return, nothing will be the same. You will lose everything. Your family, your name, your country. Perhaps eventually your life again, but this time for confessing me rather than for questioning about me. Return? I was dead, drowned in a cistern with a stone cover sealing me in. How could I possibly return? With me, all things are possible. But you must choose. Will you confess me as Lord and Savior? Will you acknowledge that I am the only way to the Father? Will you turn from your old life and follow me, no matter the cost? The Christians surrounding me in the void seemed to lean forward, waiting for my answer. Miriam's eyes were bright with hope. Yusuf nodded encouragingly. They wanted me to say yes. These people I had watched condemned, whose suffering I had done nothing to prevent, wanted me to join them, to become like them, to find the freedom they had found. But the cost, I know the cost, Jesus said. I paid it, on a cross, in blood, in suffering beyond what you can imagine. I paid the price so that you could be free. The question is not whether you can afford to follow me. The question is whether you can afford not to. I thought about my life, 28 years of trying to be good enough, trying to earn God's favor through prayers and fasting and obedience to law, 28 years of emptiness beneath the surface of religious performance. And I thought about the Christians, their peace, their joy even in suffering, their freedom even in chains. They had something I had never had, something I desperately wanted. They had Jesus. Yes, I said in the silence of my consciousness. Yes, I confess you as Lord and Savior. I believe you are the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins and rose from the dead. I turn from my old life. I choose to follow you, whatever the cost. The darkness exploded into light, not gradually, not gently, but like a supernova detonating in the void, obliterating the blackness with a brilliance so intense I should have been incinerated, but I wasn't. The light filled me, penetrated me, transformed me. It burned away guilt and shame and fear like the morning sun burning off fog. It flooded into spaces inside me I didn't know existed, spaces that had been hollow and aching my entire life. This was love, pure, unconditional, overwhelming. This was grace, unearned, undeserved, incomprehensible. This was Jesus. Not as a distant historical figure or a theological concept, but as a living presence more real than anything I had ever experienced, more substantial than my own body had been. He was light and life and love incarnate, and he was holding me, not with hands, but with a presence that surrounded and sustained and secured me. I was safe, completely, utterly, eternally safe. For the first time in my life, I was home. Welcome, beloved son, Jesus said. Welcome to the family you were always meant to belong to. The Christians around me were cheering, celebrating, their joy palpable and contagious. Miriam was weeping. Yusuf was laughing. They surrounded me like a family welcoming a long-lost member home. I wanted to stay here forever, in this light, in this love, in this perfect peace. But Jesus spoke again. Not yet. Your time in the body is not finished. You must return. You must testify to what you have seen and heard. You must be a voice for those who have been silenced. You must warn those who still have ears to hear that time is short and the choice is urgent. But I'm dead, I protested. My body is at the bottom of a cistern. How can I return? Do you not believe I am the resurrection and the life? Do you not believe that I hold the keys to death and Hades? What is impossible with men is possible with God. The light began to pull away, or I began to pull away from it. The Christians were fading, their smiles the last thing to disappear. Miriam's final words echoed after me. We'll see you again, brother. We'll see you again. The darkness returned, but it was different now. It wasn't the oppressive void of before. It was simply absence of light, temporary, not absolute. And I was no longer disembodied consciousness. I was becoming aware of my body again. My broken, battered, drowned body at the bottom of an ancient cistern. My lungs were full of water. My heart had stopped beating. By every medical and biological measure, I was dead. But Jesus had said I would return. And if Jesus said it, it was true. Suddenly, my chest convulsed. Not a natural breath, but a violent expulsion. Water erupted from my lungs, forced out by a power that had nothing to do with my body's own mechanisms. My heart jolted. Once, twice. Then I found a rhythm, slow at first, then stronger. My eyes opened in the darkness of the cistern. I was still underwater, still at the bottom of this ancient tomb, but I was alive. And I was rising, not swimming. I had no strength to swim, but something was pushing me upward, propelling me toward the surface with irresistible force, like the water itself was rejecting me, spitting me out, refusing to be my grave. I broke the surface with a gasp that echoed off stone walls. My hands flailed, and I found the rough edge of the cistern wall. I clung to it, coughing, retching, expelling the last of the water from my lungs. I was alive. Impossibly, miraculously, inexplicably alive, but I was still trapped at the bottom of a sealed cistern with no way to climb out and no one who knew I was here. Then I looked up and saw light. Not much, just a thin sliver, but light nonetheless. The stone cover had moved. Not completely off, just enough to create a narrow gap, as if invisible hands had pushed it aside. With strength I absolutely did not possess on my own, I began to climb. My fingers found cracks in the ancient stone. My feet found purchase on irregularities in the wall. Inch by inch, I ascended, my broken ribs screaming, my battered muscles trembling. But I climbed, because Jesus had told me to return, and he was giving me the strength to obey. I reached the top, squeezed through the gap in the stone cover, and collapsed on the cold floor of the storage room beneath the mosque, footsteps above me. The first call to prayer would be soon. Dawn was coming. I had to move. I had to get out before anyone found me here and finished what Sheikh Hamza had started. I crawled to the stairs, pulled myself up step by agonizing step, and reached the back door of the mosque. It was unlocked. Another impossibility, another miracle. I stumbled out into the pre-dawn streets of Medina, soaking wet, covered in blood and bruises, barely able to stand, but alive. Saved by the very one my father had spent his life condemning. Saved by Jesus. What happened to me in that cistern was not a hallucination. It was not oxygen deprivation or a dying brain's last fantasy. It was more real than anything in this physical world. And if you've stayed with me this far, if something in your spirit is responding to this testimony, then you need to hear what comes next. Subscribe now. Share this video. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, because the most dangerous part of my journey was just beginning, and you need to hear how Jesus protected me through what came after. The sun was rising over Marrakech when I finally reached a place I thought I might be safe. Not my family's riad. They would find me there immediately. Not the homes of any friends. They would turn me in, thinking it was their religious duty. I went to the only place I could think of, a small internet cafe in the Gueles district run by an older man named Hassan who had always been kind to me, asking no questions when I spent hours there researching things I couldn't research at home. I must have looked like death walking. Soaking wet, shivering, my face a swollen mass of bruises, blood still seeping from various cuts. Hassan's eyes went wide when I stumbled through his door just as he was opening for the day. "Rashid? What happened to you?" "Please," I managed to say through cracked lips. "I need help. Don't call anyone, please." To his eternal credit, Hassan asked no further questions. He locked the cafe door, led me to a back room, brought me towels and a change of clothes, and made strong, sweet tea while I tried to get warm. My whole body was shaking, not just from cold and shock, but from the reality of what had happened settling over me. I had died. I had met Jesus. I had been brought back to life, and now I was a dead man walking, because when Sheikh Hamza and the others discovered I wasn't at the bottom of that cistern, they would come looking for me, and this time, they would make sure the job was finished. I sat in Hassan's back room, wrapped in blankets, drinking tea, trying to process everything. My mind kept returning to those moments in the void. The presence of Jesus, his voice, the light, the Christians welcoming me as family. It had been real. More real than the battered body I now inhabited. More real than the fear coursing through my veins. I had encountered the living Christ, and he had given me a mission. Testify to what you have seen and heard. But how? Who would believe me? And even if someone did believe me, confessing faith in Jesus in Morocco was illegal. I would be arrested, tried, imprisoned, possibly executed. Just like all those people I had watched my father condemn, the irony was not lost on me. Hassan brought me food, which I could barely eat through my swollen mouth. He cleaned and bandaged my worst cuts. He said nothing, but his eyes held questions I wasn't ready to answer. Finally, as afternoon wore into evening, he spoke. "Whoever did this to you, they will be looking for you." I nodded. "You cannot stay in Marrakech, probably not in Morocco. You understand this?" I nodded again. "I know people," Hassan said carefully. "People who help others leave quietly. I can make a call." I looked at him, really looked at him. Hassan was in his 60s, gray-haired, weathered. He had run this internet cafe for years, had always been friendly but never intrusive. I realized I knew almost nothing about him. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Hassan was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his shirt and pulled out a small silver chain I had never noticed before. Hanging from it was a simple cross. My breath caught. "I was born Muslim," Hassan said quietly. "But 15 years ago, I met some Christians who showed me a love I had never experienced in any mosque. They introduced me to Jesus, and he changed my life. I've been following him in secret ever since." A secret Christian, right here in Marrakech, running an internet cafe as a cover, helping others who found themselves in trouble. "You're not alone, Rashid," Hassan said. "There are more of us than you think. We hide, we're careful, but we're here, and we help each other." "How did you know I began. "I didn't," Hassan admitted. "Not until this moment, when you didn't look surprised or disgusted by my cross. Most Muslims would have reacted immediately. You just looked relieved." I told him everything then. The question I had asked, the beating, the cistern, the drowning, the encounter with Jesus, the impossible resurrection. Hassan listened without interrupting, his eyes growing brighter with each detail. When I finished, he had tears running down his weathered cheeks. "Praise God," he whispered. "Praise Jesus. He is still in the business of miracles." That evening, Hassan made several phone calls, speaking in careful code. By midnight, a plan was in place. There was an underground network, he explained, that helped converts and secret Christians escape Morocco when necessary. They would get me across the border into Spain, where I could claim religious asylum. "But first," Hassan said, "there's something you need to do." He set up a small video camera on a tripod in the back room of the cafe. "Testify," he said simply. "Record what happened to you. Give your testimony in detail, with your face visible, your name spoken clearly. Then we'll upload it before you leave. Let it go viral. Let the world know what happens to those who ask questions about Jesus in this country." Fear gripped me. If I do that, there's no going back. My family. "My father. Your father made his choice when he let them take you," Hassan said gently but firmly. "You can't protect him from the consequences of his cowardice, and you can't let fear silence the testimony Jesus gave you to share." He was right. I knew he was right. So I sat before that camera, my face still swollen and bruised, and I told my story. All of it. My name, my father's name, the names of Sheikh Hamza and the others who had tried to murder me, the encounter with Jesus in the void, the resurrection from the cistern. I spoke for nearly an hour, barely pausing, the words pouring out like water from a broken dam. Hassan recorded everything. When I finished, I felt both terrified and liberated. There was no taking it back now. Once that video went online, everyone would know. My family would be shamed. The men who attacked me would be exposed. The secret Christians would be encouraged. The Muslim community would be enraged. But the truth would be told. Hassan uploaded the video to multiple platforms simultaneously, using proxies and VPNs to cover our tracks. Within hours, before I even left Marrakech, it was spreading across Moroccan social media, being shared and reshared, generating fury and support in equal measure. At 3 a.m., a van pulled up outside the cafe. Two men I had never met got out, checked the street carefully, then knocked on the door in a specific pattern. Hassan embraced me at the doorway. Go with God, brother. Live boldly. Testify fearlessly. Jesus didn't bring you back to life so you could hide. I climbed into the van. We drove through the dark streets of Marrakech, the city of my birth, my childhood, my entire life. I didn't know if I would ever see it again. We drove for hours, taking back roads, avoiding checkpoints. The two men said little. Professional smugglers who had done this many times before. As dawn broke, we reached the coast near Tangier. A small boat waited in a hidden cove. The Mediterranean stretched before us, gray and cold in the early morning light. Spain is about 15 kilometers that way, one of the men said, pointing north. The boat will take you to a drop point. From there, you'll make contact with people who will help you claim asylum. May your God protect you. The crossing was rough. I spent most of it seasick, still weak from my injuries. But by afternoon, I was on Spanish soil, in the custody of immigration officials who had been alerted to expect a Moroccan asylum seeker claiming religious persecution. They took my statement, examined my injuries, watched the video testimony I had recorded. Within a week, I was granted temporary protected status pending a full asylum hearing. I was safe, physically safe, but everything else was gone. My family disowned me publicly. My father released a statement saying I had been deceived by Christian missionaries, that I was mentally ill, that he mourned the son he had lost to apostasy. No mention of the attempted murder, no acknowledgement that his colleagues had thrown me into a cistern to drown, just a clean narrative about a son who had gone astray. But the video testimony kept spreading. Within 2 weeks, it had millions of views across the Muslim world. Some condemned me as a traitor, some dismissed me as a fraud, but others began reaching out. Secret Christians in Morocco, seekers with questions. People who had watched Christians being persecuted and wondered why their faith was worth dying for. My testimony had cracked open a door, letting light into dark places. I settled in Madrid at first, living in a small apartment provided by a Christian refugee organization. I started attending a church, made up mostly of other refugees and asylum seekers. Syrians, Iranians, Afghans, Pakistanis, all with similar stories of leaving Islam and finding Jesus at tremendous cost. We were a family of exiles, strangers in a strange land. But we had each other, and we had Jesus. 6 months after my escape, I received an email that made my hands shake. It was from my father. Rashid, I do not expect your forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I let them hurt you. I let them try to kill you. I chose my reputation over my son's life. I am a coward and a hypocrite, but I want you to know. Your testimony has broken me. I can no longer live the lie. I can no longer condemn followers of Jesus while secretly reading the Injil and weeping over what I have done. I am going to confess publicly. I know what will happen to me. I will lose everything, as you did. I will likely end up in the same prisons where I sent so many Christians. Perhaps I will be executed, but you were willing to die for the truth. How can I continue living a lie? Your father, who finally found the courage you showed him. 3 days later, my father stood in open court in Marrakech and announced that he had come to believe Jesus was Lord and Savior. He confessed to years of hypocrisy. He renounced his position as judge. He asked forgiveness from the families of those he had condemned. The courtroom erupted. He was arrested immediately, charged with apostasy and blasphemy. His trial lasted 2 days. He was found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in prison. But I saw a video of him being led away in chains, and on his face was something I had never seen before in my entire life. Peace. The same peace I had seen on Miriam's face when she prayed for him as her children were taken. The same peace the Christians had carried even facing death. My father had finally found what they had. He had found Jesus. And, though he was now in prison, he was more free than he had ever been in his judge's robes. The story doesn't end there. It never ends, really, because every day brings new challenges and new testimonies of God's faithfulness. If this has moved you, if you're beginning to understand that Jesus is not who you were taught he was, then you need to take the next step. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what comes next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me what questions you're afraid to ask. Because Jesus is still in the business of answering questions, still breaking chains, still bringing the dead back to life. Your testimony might be next. I've been living in Madrid for 3 years now. The scars on my body have mostly healed, the broken ribs mended, the bruises faded. My swollen face returned to normal, though I'll carry some marks forever. But the invisible scars, the transformation that happened in that cistern, those marks are eternal. I work now with a ministry that helps Muslim refugees, particularly those who have questions about Jesus or who have secretly converted and need support. I speak at churches, sharing my testimony, helping Christians understand the risks their brothers and sisters in Muslim-majority countries face every day. And I visited my father. Twice a year, I return to Morocco under careful conditions, accompanied by international human rights observers to visit him in prison. The first time was terrifying. Returning to the country where I had nearly died, walking past the same streets, the same buildings, the same mosque beneath which I had drowned. But I had to see him. The prison was exactly what you would expect. Harsh, overcrowded, violent. My father had lost weight. Gray had overtaken his hair completely. His judge's bearing was gone, replaced by a humility I had never seen in him before. We sat across from each other in the visiting room, guards watching, unable to embrace because of the table between us. "I'm sorry," were his first words. "For everything, for my cowardice, for my hypocrisy, for letting them hurt you. I forgive you," I said, and I meant it, because Jesus had forgiven me for my own complicity, my own silence. How could I withhold forgiveness from my father? He wept then, not quietly, but with great, heaving sobs that shook his thin frame. "I don't deserve it. None of us deserve Jesus," I said. "That's what grace means." He told me about his secret faith, the years of reading the Injil late at night, the growing conviction that Jesus was more than a prophet, the terrible cognitive dissonance of condemning Christians by day while begging Christ for mercy by night. "Your testimony broke me," he said. "Seeing your face, hearing you describe meeting Jesus, I couldn't deny it anymore. I couldn't live the lie anymore." "How is it?" I asked, gesturing to the prison around us. "Really?" A smile crossed his face, strange and beautiful. "Better than the courtroom. In there, I was in a prison of my own making, trapped by reputation and fear. In here, I'm physically confined but spiritually free. I lead Bible studies with other Christian prisoners. I share my testimony with anyone who will listen. Some mock me, some beat me, but some listen, and some have met Jesus because of it. My father, the feared judge, had become an evangelist in prison. "I think," he said softly, "this is what God intended for me all along. I sentenced 500 Christians to prison over my career. Now I'm in prison, telling their story, explaining why their faith was worth suffering for. It's like God is redeeming even my worst sins and using them for his purpose. I visit him every time I can. Each visit, he looks more worn physically but more radiant spiritually. He's become a father to other prisoners, particularly young men who remind him of me. Last month, he told me that Miriam, the mother who prayed for him when he took her children, had sent him a letter through a Christian network. She's out of prison now, reunited with her family, still following Jesus, still sharing her faith. And she had forgiven him, completely, without reservation. She said, my father told me, tears streaming down his face, that she prays for me every day, that she considers me a brother in Christ, that she's grateful God used my persecution to strengthen her faith, and now my testimony to strengthen others. This is what Jesus does. He takes our worst moments, our deepest sins, our most shameful failures, and he redeems them. He transforms them. He uses them for his glory and our growth. I asked a question that nearly got me killed. Why do we condemn people for loving Jesus? The answer I found was not in words but in experience. in dying and being resurrected, in encountering the living Christ, in watching my Father transform from a harsh judge into a humble servant. We condemn people for loving Jesus because Jesus is dangerous to systems of control, because his truth threatens our carefully constructed lies, because his love exposes our lovelessness, because his freedom challenges our prisons. But you cannot keep Jesus locked up. Not in theological arguments, not in cultural traditions, not in legal systems, not even in death. He breaks out, he resurrects, he transforms. He saved me from drowning, not just in water but in a lifetime of empty religion. He saved my father from a lifetime of condemning others to cover his own doubts. And he can save you, whatever you're drowning in right now. Guilt, fear, emptiness, addiction, despair, confusion. Jesus can pull you out. He can breathe life into your dead places. He can turn your testimony from a warning into a beacon. But you have to be willing to ask the dangerous questions, to face the uncomfortable truths, to let go of the life you've built when it's built on lies. You have to be willing to drown, so he can resurrect you. I lost everything. My family, my country, my future, my name. Everything I thought defined me was stripped away, but I gained Jesus. And he is worth more than everything I lost combined. My father is in prison, probably for the rest of his life, but he's freer than he ever was on the bench. The Christians I watched condemned are still suffering for their faith all over the world, but they carry a peace and joy that transcends suffering. And I am here, telling you this story, because Jesus told me to testify, to be a voice for those who have been silenced, to warn those who still have ears to hear. Time is short. The world is getting darker. Systems of control are tightening. Persecution is increasing. But Jesus is still calling people out of darkness into his marvelous light. Will you answer? Will you ask the dangerous questions? Will you face the truth, even if it costs you everything? I did. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, because meeting Jesus, truly encountering him, is worth any cost, even death, especially death. Because on the other side of death with Christ is resurrection, and resurrection changes everything. This is my testimony. This is my warning. This is my invitation. Jesus is real. He is alive. He is calling your name right now, just as he called mine in the darkness of that cistern. Don't ignore his voice. Don't let fear silence the questions your soul is asking. Subscribe to this channel and join a community of truth seekers who have decided Jesus is worth the cost. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what question are you afraid to ask? Because the answer might be the key to your own resurrection. May Jesus meet you in your darkness as he met me in mine, and may you find the courage to follow him into the light, no matter what it costs.